Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show!
Greetings and welcome to another episode of And New MMA Show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen. I do all kinds of mystifying things with my voice. Chief among them, I'm a professional ring announcer and MMA cage announcer, and I am joined, as I often am, by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights. First up, we have Mark Priaulx. Mark, how's it going?
It's going good, man. I got a little bit of a scratchy throat, small cough thing happening over here, so
Okay.
I have to clear my throat a few times in this episode, so I apologize in advance. But
No worries.
I mean, look, we got the Michael Jordan flu game, we got the Kurt Schilling bloody sock game,
Yeah.
and now we have me who's gonna have to clear his throat during episodes. So I do this for you guys, you know, and you're witnessing history right now, but
Yeah, man.
we're gonna get through it.
And dude, you're rocking the Ken Griffey hat, which I love.
I certainly am. My favorite hat in
It's a dope
all of the
hat.
land that I've ever owned.
And joining us from Florida, from the freest state in the Union, Omar Artola. Omar, what's going on, bud?
Yes, very, very free down here. As you can see from my hair right now, as free as can be.
Although it was oppressively hot today where I live.
It's always
It was hot here too.
the humidity down here is what'll kill you more than anything. I mean, if you have hair like mine, my shit just goes, it just blows up. But yeah, doing well, man. Doing well. Excited to get into it. This is gonna be an exciting weekend,
Yeah,
even though we
man.
don't have UFC. It's gonna be
Yeah.
a good time.
We still have fights. So let me jump right into our rundown here. So on this week's episode, we're going to start, as we always do, with On the Marquee, our first segment. Then we're going to talk about the rest of last weekend's UFC 265 card. Then we're going to hop into our Priaulx rankings and get it from Mark who rose and who fell from that weekend's card. And then we're going to look ahead to this Friday night, two cards, Bellator 264 and PFL 7. We're going to preview those a little bit. So guys, let me jump right into our first segment. This is On the Marquee. This week, the name on the marquee, of course, is Ciryl Gane, the Frenchman, who this past Saturday night at UFC 265 defeated the always dangerous Derrick the Black Beast Lewis via TKO. I did not see that coming. At 4 minutes and 11 seconds of round number 3. In doing so, winning the UFC Interim Heavyweight Championship. Mark, let me start with you. What did you make of Ciryl Gane's interim title winning performance on Saturday night?
That's pretty good, huh?
That was pretty good, man.
He's pretty good. Yeah, that was a blowout. That was exactly what we were afraid of if we were talking worst case scenarios for Derrick Lewis, which was that Gane is so good and so elusive and has such a mastery of range, and of course is so fast, as we've touched on, that Derrick Lewis wouldn't be able to touch him. And as I said, it was the absolute worst case scenario you could imagine, and it is exactly what happened in the octagon. Derrick Lewis could not even get in close enough range to consider throwing a punch.
Mhm.
Like he couldn't even start to think about throwing a punch. That's how well Gane kept him at range and how much of a risk Lewis felt like it was due to the speed disadvantage to enter. So he got basically frozen to the point where he started to realize that he had to rush in, and then proceeded to get punched in the face because Gane was so much quicker and ready to counter. And obviously it went all downhill from there. Derrick Lewis is hurtable when he eats clean shots. He doesn't have like a granite chin. Obviously he's a super tough guy.
Yeah.
But when you have to kind of start desperately trying to close distance because you realize you have no options the way that Lewis did, you're going to get cracked. And that's exactly what happened. And, you know, he couldn't eat him forever. And unfortunately for at least I think all three of us and a lot of other people who are fans of Derrick Lewis, he wilted. And that was that. But my God, the story has to be how good Ciryl Gane is. He honestly reminded me of John Jones as I watched him fight. And I haven't been a huge Ciryl Gane guy thus far. I mean, obviously it's clear how good he is. I've just kind of been like, like someone's going to test this guy. He hasn't been in one of these wars yet. He isn't quite battle tested yet.
Right.
But the more I watch him, and especially watching that performance, I'm like, this guy reminds me of John Jones when he came up. Yeah. He fights in such a similar way in that he doesn't get touched. He doesn't risk getting in these kind of fights. He's so good at mitigating risk and still putting his hands on you, putting his weapons on you. Everything kicks. He's not the wrestler Jones is, but he has the grappling that Jones has. I don't know. It's very reminiscent to me. And I think back on that where I kind of felt the same way. I was like, obviously Jones is great, but like now he's going to fight Shogun for the title, and like Shogun's going to put it on this guy. So we'll see what he has here. And like, none of that mattered because he was just that good and that hard for anyone to put it on. And I'm starting to think like, man, this might be Ciryl Gane. Like it might be the same kind of deal here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I left super impressed with Gane coming out of that one for sure.
In honor of your Ken Griffey hat, give me the baseball analogy of this. Would you call it a perfect game, a no-hitter, a one-hitter? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I got to call that a perfect game.
Perfect game.
Did he get hit? He maybe like one time, maybe.
No.
When you fight Derrick Lewis, a guy who is that dangerous, and you walk out of there unscathed, that's a perfect game to me.
Yeah. So Omar, this interim title has guaranteed a title shot at the true belt holder, Francis Ngannou. So what are your early thoughts on Ngannou Lewis? Not Ngannou Lewis, on Ngannou Gane?
I want to reiterate how sad I am.
That we're not getting this rematch?
Not even. I didn't even care for the rematch. Just I'll keep saying that I love a good storyline almost more than anything. I hate WWE and stuff because it's scripted, because someone sits down and like writes this stuff out. And in MMA, while you can, kind of move the cards around to get the best result possible, at the end of the day, life's going to do what it's going to do. And you kind of just have to flow with it. And the storyline that Derrick Lewis had going into this, being able to, break a record with another knockout, doing it in his hometown, getting the title that we all eventually thought he was bound to get at some point, kind of being the underdog in almost everything that he had gotten into leading up until this point. There were just so many moments that just winning that fight would have capitalized on. And he just ate so much shit that night. I mean, it was really bad. It wasn't competitive at all. It wasn't great. And to be honest, it was probably the most fun I've had watching a Ciryl Gane performance, which I think is also like salt in the wound for me, to be honest. But Gane versus Ngannou is kind of a fantastic fight at this point because I seem to keep mismeasuring Ngannou's progress at this point. I don't know if I can accurately gauge it. I didn't do it well the first time. And so I'm not sure where his ceiling is at this point. He was super raw. He always had striking, but I think his ability to stuff takedowns from Stipe and keep it standing and, put his game into play really surprised me. And I can only imagine now with a guy that he's trained with before. I don't think they've ever gone 100% with each other. Sparring generally doesn't work like that. And I don't think they would have ever, I can't see them having gone 100% in the gym. So I don't think Ngannou at any point has ever tried to actually knock out Ciryl Gane and vice versa. So I don't think either one of them have really any idea what they're in for in that sense. I think it's a whole different game once Ngannou swings at your face. I'm pretty sure everybody that's ever talked about that sound is just listening to death as it just whizzes by you. I don't see Gane being necessarily used to that from Ngannou. Obviously, Ciryl Gane has gone through the heavyweight division at this point. Everybody kind of hits like a monster. He just beat the whole hell out of Derrick Lewis, who is basically a walking atomic bomb. Excuse me. Yeah. I just think it's really going to come down to technique at the end of the day. I think on paper at this point, based on what we've seen, it just seems like Gane has more tools to get the job done and also prevent Ngannou from getting his job done. They are frankly the two best heavyweights at this point. I mean, I frankly think that's non-negotiable. That's non-debatable. Stipe is obviously Stipe is in the mix. I'm not saying he's not, but right now
you gotta look for Mark.
But I'm totally fine with.
You said non-negotiable. I feel like that was a little too aggressive.
Well, but Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane, I think at this point, especially based on performance-wise, these are the two guys that should be fighting for the title right now.
You could certainly argue that Gane is better than Stipe at this point, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's non-negotiable. But
I mean, I think
Stipe deserves the next title shot. If we're not gonna, I don't know what's going on with Jones. I'm not gonna assume Jones is in the picture at this point.
I think he's gonna wait to fight the winner of this fight, personally,
and just walk in.
Yeah, I think he's gonna walk in and fight the winner of Ngannou Gane.
Get ready for Stipe's Twitter, guys. Get ready for Stipe's
Twitter. I know it's not gonna be great. What shocked me in regard to this upcoming matchup is that the opening odds after 265 came out and had Gane as the favorite. He was minus 130 and Ngannou was plus 110. So really close, but Gane favored, which as much as I came out of that fight thinking like, man, Gane versus Ngannou is closer than I thought in my head, I still never expected Gane to be the favorite. So that surprised me. Since then, I have looked again, and it's down to like a dead even pick'em, which doesn't shock me that people saw Ngannou at underdog money and bet it up. So it's like a pick'em right now, but you can tell just from that what people think of Gane's game and how much people are believing in it now, coming off of that performance.
I mean, that's a testament though to Gane, because let's be realistic about his performances. His performances haven't been like uber fantastic. He beat Dos Santos at basically towards the end of his career, right? Like it was a great performance, cool. There was a little bit of controversy because Dos Santos was like, you hit me in the back of the head, whatever. Right. Like that is what it is. After that, you had two performances that you were generous to just get through it, get it done, get your W, walk away.
As good as he looked, no one was coming out of those like, oh my God, Ciryl Gane,
Exactly.
Because there was no sense of urgency there. He did what he had to do, but there was no finishing instinct in there. There was at no point, that switch that goes off like, let me get in there. Let me really, get this fight done. At no point during either one of those fights. And then, the Derrick Lewis fight, we see a completely, as far as I'm concerned, a completely different fighter where he saw his opportunities. Derrick Lewis didn't have as many tools, and maybe that has something to do with it. But Gane saw the opportunity, and you could see in moments in that fight that he switched it on in multiple rounds.
Yeah, it's very possible.
I thought it was a great performance, man. I actually really enjoyed watching him in that performance.
It's very possible that how good he looked was very matchup based, which tends to happen sometimes in MMA. So it's possible that was just the perfect matchup for Ciryl Gane to show out, and that he's being a little overrated coming into the Ngannou fight. That's not what I think. I'm just saying that is possible, and it wouldn't be the first time we've seen that happen in MMA where someone just had a perfect style matchup and kind of tricked everyone into thinking they were more dangerous than they were. But obviously we'll find that out when the cage door locks with him and Ngannou. But I love the backstory. I love that they've trained together. I love the UFC's already, I've seen it 5 times already. The fight's barely even booked yet. The training footage of them sparring with each other. So we're going to see that about 150 more times. I'm sure we'll hear from the coaches, the whole deal. But like the UFC countdown for that one is gonna be.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because there's apparently a lot of bad blood between the fact that Francis left that camp and went to a different camp and kind of left them high and dry and is representing somebody else now. And so there was their former teammates at this point, and so there's a lot of street cred on the line at this point.
Ciryl Gane has done something that it might be one of the hardest things to do in all of professional sports, and that is to go undefeated in MMA at heavyweight. Yeah. You know how hard that is to do? He has gone 10 professional MMA fights at heavyweight and has never gotten knocked out, let alone never lost.
Has he lost a round?
I don't know. I mean, he has a number of decisions on his record. But
I'm genuinely curious now. At least in the UFC. Volkov might have took a round if I remember. And maybe in the earlier fights. It's hard to remember things like that. But
who else was on that train?
Damn perfect.
Yeah.
Rosenstrike was also on that 10-fight undefeated train.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The thing about heavyweight, man, is like everybody can be undefeated until they're not. Like I thought Junior Dos Santos was undefeated. I just double checked because I remember him. That was kind of the whole hype with Junior Dos Santos is like, he's up and comer. He wasn't losing, but he had one submission loss in that beginning part of his career.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, he was boxing people up left and right and knocking people out.
Yeah.
But the reality is it really only takes one fighter, right? Like after Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos was never really the same again.
Mm-hmm.
Dude ruined his career.
Yeah.
Probably ruined his own career, frankly, because that war was not healthy for anybody.
Yeah.
But the comparison to John Jones I think is a fair one, Mark, because like Jones, Gane is coming in with this undefeated. Don't talk to me about Matt Hamill. Just don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it.
You're not going to hear it from me.
No one here will. Don't worry about
that. He has this undefeated streak and he fights in this way where he just seemingly never overextends himself. He never puts himself into a position that he doesn't need to. Usman also makes me think of this in terms of how Kamaru Usman fights. He fights so aggressively while being so safe for himself. It is incredible to watch.
Yeah. They fight as if the entire fight is up to them. Like they're controlling the whole thing.
Yeah. I've personally been less impressed with John Jones's recent performances than I have been his earlier performances. At an early point in his career, especially after the Stephan Bonner fight, or from the Stephan Bonner fight on, that was really where he got his first bit of notoriety, was like manhandling Stephan Bonner on the mat.
Yeah, I'm talking about prime John Jones here.
Well, I'm just saying, like he had this thing though about him when he fought, where he was beating people at their own game. He was dominant in every place that you could think that he could be overrun in almost every fight. I mean, he went through, again, if John Jones is nothing else, he has the best resume in championship MMA. As far as
I mean,
for sure. I'm not trying to act like they're on the same level. I'm just talking about the style of fighting.
Yeah, I just don't think Ciryl Gane, like I said, has a lot of safety behind him. John Jones didn't really have that when we talk about John Jones. He was very much about beating the hell out of somebody and, like I said, kind of making a statement and beating people at their own game. There was maybe a handful of fights I could think of that were maybe boring and not as aggressive. Rashad Evans is kind of the one that comes to mind off the top of my head. He just, there might have been too much bad blood there to really get anything going. Who knows? But
at the risk of sidetracking us a little bit, Mark, I thought I heard you say that John Jones is no longer in his prime. Would you stand by that statement?
I mean, all I meant was that the John Jones of the come up era was a better version of John Jones than what we've seen in his last, say, 3-4 fights.
Hey, I'm here for all the hot takes.
Disinterested. John Jones will probably be the heavyweight champion by this time next year. So Yeah, I'm not about to say that at all.
If a guy goes undefeated for his whole career, wouldn't you have to say that his whole career was his prime?
Yeah, you would. That's why I'm not saying it's
Like it could be,
prime.
or like Ciryl Gane so far. No, but I get you. I'm just busting you.
No.
Any last words we want to say about Ciryl Gane?
In regards to Lewis as well, or just in regard to Gane?
Either, yeah.
Tough loss for Lewis, for sure. In terms of where he goes next, I would love to see him rewarded, since he was supposed to be getting a title shot against Ngannou and had to go this route instead. In what was a much tougher style matchup than Ngannou would have been. Not saying he would have beat Ngannou, but he matched up better with Ngannou. So I would love to see him get rewarded and get a fight with Stipe, if that's something that Stipe would do, considering Stipe is kind of out in the cold right now with the way this division is playing out.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make me happy if Lewis got another huge opportunity. I do think he's earned it and had the Stipe fight. Unfortunately, Stipe is kind of giving off the vibe that is not something he's interested in right now. I know he did say yes to Bones, but obviously Bones, Lewis, quite different levels there. And I don't think Bones is going to be saying yes to Stipe. So I think Bones and Stipe are just both not fighting at this point, which would have to take us to backup options for Lewis. But I think there are some that could work. If that is going to be the case, if Stipe is not on the table, I think it makes sense to just wait till next month, till UFC 266. And I think there's 2 fights on that card where, depending on how they play out, could give us a matchup that works out well for Lewis. The first is that Rosenstrike is fighting Curtis Blades.
Mm-hmm.
And if Rosenstrike was to win that one, they have not fought yet. Obviously, they are similar type of fighters. They're both knockout artists. I feel like that would be a really fun one, and the winner would be right back near the top. Obviously, if Blades wins, we already know what happened there. He's not going to fight Blades again. But then there's a second option on that same card, which is Chris Daukaus fighting Shamil Abdurakhimov. If it finally ever happens, it's gotten postponed 3 different times now, so we'll see if it happens on that one. And Lewis has also already beaten Abdurakhimov. But if Chris Daukaus wins that one, he's going to be like borderline top 5 coming out of that. So that could be another fun one. So there's definitely options for Lewis. Again, perfect world, I'd love to see the Stipe one, but
yeah,
unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be getting that one.
For a guy who's been around as long as Derrick Lewis has, to see him fight Stipe finally would be a great matchup.
Yeah, great. It'd be really fun.
Yeah.
In an even more perfect world, Bones would take the Stipe fight, because I would love to see that one.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's happening either.
No. John actually already came out and squashed the idea and said it's not happening.
Yeah.
Really? Why? They just want Canelo money. I don't know what they want.
I don't think on top of the money, they want the belt. They're at the level at this point. They're at the level at this point where they're on the John Jones is the greatest of all time train, and he deserves nothing less than a title shot. That's just where they're at.
No matter what.
No matter what. Apparently, that's just where they're at.
He could sit out for 10 years.
I mean, to be fair, John Jones does not need the money.
I guess not.
Also, Dana has kind of alluded to the fact, like Dana said, if you want to be active, we got Stipe for you. But he also kind of alluded to the fact, like, if you don't, you can just wait and you'll fight for the title when it's settled and ready for you. So for Dana to already be saying that, I could see why Jones is like, all right, well then I'll just wait.
Because at some point, the top of heavyweight, the top levels of heavyweight are going to kind of get stagnant. There's not a lot of real movement going on up there. And once it starts to get to a point where they're recycling fights again, that's when they'll probably be like, so how about that? How about that championship fight then, John?
Yeah.
I mean, my early thoughts on that is that I just think Jones is taking too much time off, especially to come back at heavyweight and to face guys at heavyweight who can crack like that.
That's why I wish he would fight Stipe, because Stipe is like 240 pounds. It's like the perfect.
It's a great point.
And you stay active, you enter heavyweight, you feel a bigger guy, but it's not a 265-pound guy.
Right.
Stipe is not like Stipe can knock you out for sure, but he's not like Francis Ngannou going to knock you out type of power. So I just feel like there's a lot of reasons why that's a great entry fight for Jones.
Right.
And that he can only build off of that one. But I guess the fear is, what if you lose to Stipe and then you don't get your title fight? So.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, Stipe for Jones is a guy at heavyweight who he's going to enjoy all of those same height and reach advantages over like he did at light heavy.
Yep.
I also think it's crazy though that like everybody discounts Stipe. Like if this was 2011 or 12 or something, people would have been jumping at the chance to fight Cain Velasquez, lose or loss or win. But now the dude that breaks Cain Velasquez's record, who still has the record for the most UFC championship defenses, is being treated like this fucking throwaway fighter that they can just get rid of and replace at any point.
Being treated by whom?
By the UFC.
Why? They're offering him John Jones.
But I'm talking about the rematch, for the first rematch with Ngannou, right? Like that should have been, I think that should have been a rematch, especially after once we take all that time that was going on. We didn't know what was going on with the Derrick Lewis fight. We didn't know, like, this whole interim title thing that we ended up with at heavyweight was fucking ridiculous. Let's be real.
You think Stipe should have got the trilogy right away before Lewis got a shot? Is that what
I think
you're
it would have. I think I would have been okay with it. I definitely wouldn't have been crying about it. My whole thing is that Stipe doesn't seem to get the respect as somebody who, to me, made a statement in the heavyweight division that no one else, even Ngannou at this point, hasn't made.
Honestly, I would have agreed with you until I heard that they tried to get him a fight with John Jones. Like, you can't ask for a bigger fight than that.
I mean, I guess, but I don't know who they're placating to really at that point. Are they placating to Jones really? Or, I mean, it's a great opportunity for Stipe, sure, but is it an opportunity that they know Stipe is never going to get because John's not going to take it?
Probably.
So it's
Which
almost
doesn't
like
make sense.
pandering
Like,
to Stipe.
I don't get why Jones camp is acting like, I guess it's kind of, I feel like Jones camp is acting the way you're saying the UFC is acting. Like, I don't know why they're acting like it's an insult that they would be offered a fight with Stipe. Like,
I mean, I agree.
A lot of people call Stipe the greatest heavyweight in UFC history.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a pretty damn good offer. Like, that's a fight with a lot of historic ramifications in terms of like all-time rankings, and that fight would be a big deal. So I don't personally, I don't know why you don't take that one, but I guess they just have it set in their heads that they're fighting for the title, and that's it.
Yeah, dude. I think that's not. If you beat Stipe, you walk away with more credentials than you
Hell
walk
yeah,
in
you
with.
do.
That's
Yes,
not a throwaway fight at all.
Right.
It
totally
enhances
agree.
your legacy big time.
Significantly,
Right.
100%.
That's quite the notch on your belt.
Yeah.
With that, guys, let's put a bow in that and let's march down the card now. So once again, shout out to Ciryl Gane and enjoy your week on the marquee, my friend. Marching down this card to UFC 265 in the co-main event, the legend Jose Aldo Jr. This past Saturday night at UFC 265 defeated Pedro Munhoz via unanimous decision, earning a 30-27 on all three judges' scorecards. Omar, let me start with you on this one. What did you make of the performance turned in by the former UFC title holder Jose Aldo on Saturday?
Dude, how good is Jose Aldo? Like, how good is Jose Aldo? I mean, the man seems to get, like, I don't know, better is really the fight, more refined, sharper, maybe more comfortable with what he needs to do in the fight. But we saw some kicks in there. I was happy about that. He was kicking homeboy right in his leg. And his hands honestly look like he could punch through a wall. He throws them so viciously, so hard. Those body shots look like pee's gonna come out immediately when you hit somebody with those. I loved every bit of his performance. 30-27, I thought, was the proper score. Munhoz looked more than happy to get his ass beat by Jose Aldo. That looked like an honor to him. I don't know, but that was a fantastic performance from Jose Aldo. And again, I am perfectly okay with that man continuing to fight, even through all the miles he's got. There's no wear and tear on this man. There's no wear and tear that seems to be significantly degrading his performances. Yeah, he looked great, man. I loved that fight. It was a fantastic fight.
Mark, let me get your thoughts on Aldo and Munhoz, their performances, and where does each go from here in this stacked bantamweight division?
Jose Aldo, baby. Let's go. WEC never die. The guy's so freaking good. He's got to be applauded for how good he has been for this long, and the fact that he is still this good after all this time. He debuted in the WEC in 2008. He's been in his fair share of matchups with absolute killers, and he is still here, still looking this good, turning guys away. He was awesome. He fought legitimately exactly the way that I hoped he would fight that fight. In terms of standing his ground, making it be kind of a punch for punch type of deal. It helped that Munhoz did not really dial up the pace the way that I thought he would. He probably should have listened to the podcast last week and things might have gone better for him. But no, in all seriousness, he really didn't do that as much. He was willing to trade with Aldo, and for almost anyone, it's going to be a losing formula unless you're like Conor McGregor. I mean, not even like that's what happened in their fight. That just happened to be a shock punch in 10 seconds. But yeah, it's not going to go well for you. The power and the timing of Jose Aldo is too much for almost anyone alive in these weight classes. In straight exchanges, he is going to get the better of it. And it's exactly what happened. Munhoz could not hang. He didn't have the same firepower. Aldo's timing was simply better in nearly every exchange, and he looked fantastic. The guy is absolutely still at the top. And honestly, if you look back at his record, I just pulled it up here quick. If you take out the Marlon Moraes loss in 2019, which was a split decision that a lot of people scored for Jose Aldo,
including,
and if you remember, the UFC even acted like Jose won that fight, and advanced him from there. So if you take out that loss, his losses are to, not counting very early in his career, I'm saying, in the UFC, his losses are Conor, Max, Volk, Jan.
Yeah, that's
you
a great
cannot
point.
get more elite than those guys. He has beaten everyone else that has been thrown at him.
Only champions.
And only Max is the one that's really that you can really give the medal to, as far as I'm concerned, because Max put it on his ass twice in the same way, and Aldo had no answer for him both times.
Right. So so my point in saying that is that there have been a lot of people, especially once he lost 3 in a row, which was the Volk, Moraes split decision, and then Jan. At that point, who wanted to kind of act like the end was near for Aldo, and the demise of Jose Aldo has been greatly exaggerated. The guy is an animal, and there will be more to be heard from him very soon.
Just piggybacking off what you just said, honestly, when Jose lost to Peter Yan back in 2020,
early 2020. Is that right?
I thought that was of the kind of fight that a veteran might retire off of. I mean, he got beat up so bad by Peter Yan. He was like dry heaving after that fight because he was he was beaten up so badly. But he's bounced back, hasn't he?
Yeah, dude, he looks great, man. I mean, again, the main difference I think with his newer game and his older game are just the kicks, the degree that he doesn't kick anymore. I was glad to see him kicking, but I just wonder if maybe he broke his foot too many times. He's just not about it anymore. I can totally see that. I mean, once you break your foot more than twice, if you keep breaking it, you're just asking to never walk again. So I kind of get it if he's trying to change up his game, but he's so efficient. And to Mark's credit, the timing, if you watch his fight, especially this fight against Munhoz was doing what he could with what he was given, because every time he moved forward, every time He would duck under to go forward. Aldo had an answer. He had a reaction. So for every one hit that Munhoz might have been able to throw, Aldo was peppering him with 2 or 3 and just breaking up the rhythm to the point where Munhoz, it was the end of the 3rd round by the time Munhoz realized what was going on.
Yeah. Yep. I've seen a little bit of chatter from I forget who, some MMA talking heads talking about the idea of Jose Aldo now with a couple of wins on his record, moving up to 155 and fighting a man named Conor McGregor in a rematch. Because
moving up 2 weight classes is the
basically if he wanted to fight Conor at 155 and just basically not have to cut any weight, he probably would be fighting at his walk around weight. And basically saying if the UFC really wants Conor to get back in the win column very badly, and still fight a fight that moves the needle ratings wise and pay-per-view buys wise, that might be, something to entertain. What do you guys, what's your reaction to that?
I hate that fight.
It's funny. I was just going to say, I don't hate it.
Oh, good disagreement.
I don't
love it.
Like it though. Really? Like, I don't hate it. Like, all right, that would be cool. I'd like it more. I feel like if it was at 145, but I don't think Conor's ever going there again.
Ever.
He's definitely not going to 135.
Aldo has changed his body so much and his diet so much and everything. Remember, the guy used to struggle to make 145. Struggle to make 145.
Yeah, yeah.
He has changed his whole life. His whole physique is different. Everything is different. For him to go up to 155 now would just be like packing on unnecessary pounds. I don't know. That doesn't do it for me. I don't think there's any reason to do that. That's like a fantasy booking where you wish it made sense because you'd love to see that rematch. It just doesn't make sense right now.
Yeah, so, I'm sure that Aldo on some level would love to try to run that back again.
Oh yeah. I mean, you tell him he's going to fight Conor McGregor, he's going to say, fuck yeah. Like,
but the thing you gotta remember is, that 155 might be Aldo's walking around weight. But if he's going to fight McGregor at 155, he's not going to walk around at 155. He's going to want to gain weight so he can cut down to 155. Whether he cuts, 5 or 10 pounds or whatever it is, he's not going to walk in there just having been chilling at 155 the entire time when McGregor is walking around at fucking 170, 160, whatever, cutting down to 155.
More.
Aldo's going to get slept at 155 of that.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he's sabotaging everything he has done to become the bantamweight weapon that he is right now.
There's literally this is a fight that's better off done at like behind a gym somewhere with like a bunch of dudes and just like don't tell nobody. Just get that shit over with on your
buy
own
the video game and do it there.
Yeah. Because there's I don't even think, what does that do for Conor? That doesn't, you can't beat Aldo better than what happened in the first fight.
Well, so the only thing that just to argue against that, the only thing that does for Conor, in theory, would be to put him back in the win column. Speaking from a promotional point of view, I think the UFC would want Conor McGregor to be in the win column.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I think that's, I don't know. I think trying to find like going all the way back to the beginning of your title run, basically, and trying to pick on a guy that is now 2 sizes fucking smaller than you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the optics,
man. I don't like it.
That was basically the story of their first fight. I mean, as difficult as it was for Aldo to cut down to even 45, McGregor was like the Francis Ngannou of featherweight.
I mean, there's definitely a point there, but they were both struggling at the same time, making that weight during the same run.
Yeah,
we're on 2 completely different chapters at this point. It just doesn't make sense.
Both of their bodies have changed so much in opposite directions.
Yeah, McGregor couldn't make 145 now, I think, if he really wanted to.
All right. Well, fantasy matchups aside, Mark, let me get one more thing from you on Aldo before we move on to Luque Chiesa. Aldo now has riding a 2-fight win streak now with this win over Pedro Munhoz. Bantamweight is a stacked division, maybe my favorite division right now. Where do you see Aldo going from here in terms of matchups?
So I think there's options, and they're all kind of unique in their own way. Option one would be obviously what he is asking for, which is TJ Dillashaw, which I would love to see. Only problem is I don't think we're going to get it because it seems like TJ is most likely just going to line up to fight the winner of Jan Sterling. The only way I could really see that happening is if Jan Sterling, for any reason, got delayed again, and TJ needed a fight in the meantime. Then I could see it, but it seems like he is going to get the title shot. So if that's the case, I don't. Obviously, Corey's right there as well, and it's easy to think of him as we're talking TJ. For some reason, I'm not as into that fight as I am into the other guy who is sitting right there at the top, which is Rob Font. I really love the idea of Jose Aldo versus Rob Font. They are, I mean, their styles are very different, so I don't want to say they're similar, but they're similarly dangerous and similarly heavy-handed. I think that could potentially be a war. And I think that Font kind of needs that type of fight on his resume as he's trying to get his own title shot here. You know, he was close to this title shot, and TJ came back and kind of took any chance Font had. If he gets an Aldo on his resume, that's huge for his claim. And same way the other way around. If Aldo turned back Font, who's been amazing lately, he's right there. So I think that would be the actual fight that probably makes the most sense in terms of where they rank, contendership, all that. Then option three would be the fun fight, the fight for the fans, which would be doing Dominic Cruz. I think people would get really into that. Cruz is not ranked as high these days, but you book Aldo Cruz, people are going to be flocking to see that fight. It has so much historical significance. It's a fight
legend on legend
fantasy
right
matchmaked for years, and we're kind of in a place where you could make it. And I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be in that place where it's makeable. So I wouldn't hate if they just pulled that trigger. I'm not sure what Aldo would think, just considering Cruz is ranked behind him. But that'd be a friggin' awesome fight.
Honestly, I think with the way that Aldo's mindset is, or it seems like his mindset is, he probably has a shit ton of respect for Dominic Cruz. Having been the champion as long as he was, and kind of all the credentials that go with it. It wouldn't shock me that he's down for that fight. It wouldn't shock me at all.
Oh, absolutely. With that, guys, let's keep marching down this card of UFC 265. Vicente Luque. What a night for Vicente Luque, defeating Michael Chiesa by submission via Darce choke at 3 minutes and 25 seconds of round number one. Mark, I'll get your reaction first of this incredible performance by the rising Vicente Luque over a very tough guy in Michael Chiesa.
Yeah, not a lot to discuss about this fight, huh? I don't think anyone expected it to be that quick.
Yeah.
You know, two really tough guys, and that thing was over fast. Luque, obviously fantastic win, raises his stock big time. He jumped on the mic and called out Usman right after the fight, so he was well aware of what it did to his stock. You know, he's shooting for the stars.
Yeah.
But he was awesome. We said it last week that Luque is comfortable and even slick on the ground.
Oh yeah.
Did I think that the first sub attempt he threw up would tap Michael Chiesa? No, I did not. But the man is no slouch down there. He's got a lot of subs on his record, and honestly, I'm kicking myself because I almost brought this up last week and I did not, because I was kind of picking Chiesa and I didn't want to throw out too many negatives. But what I almost brought up is that he is susceptible to being submitted, which is odd for a grappler of his prowess. But he is a guy who gets caught in subs. If you take out his doctor stoppage loss to Joe Lozon, every other UFC loss that he has, which is 4 now, is by submission. Jorge Masvidal subbed him with a Bravo choke. Kevin Lee had him in rear naked. Yep. Anthony Pettis caught him in a triangle armbar. And now this with the Darce choke. As fantastic of a grappler as Michael Chiesa is, he tends to get caught in submissions, and it came back to bite him here. He just, I mean, he kind of left the neck right there.
Yeah.
And even as they were scrambling, I don't know about you guys, as Chiesa kind of flipped over, I didn't realize it was as tight as it was. And then it was just like, oh shit, this thing is over. Like
I thought he was kind of got out of it for a moment. It seemed like he was getting out of it. And then Luque sort of repositioned and retightened his arms around that Darce.
What's super impressive about that choke, to be honest, is that he didn't really have control of Chiesa's legs.
No.
For a Darce choke to really work, the way they'll teach you a Darce choke is you need to have control of at least one of those legs to kind of have that pressure and that leverage to, kind of like when you're doing a guillotine, you're crunching in to sort of bend the body and break that path to your airway while also, getting on the carotid artery. So Darce choke is very similar in that goal. Right. So there's still a certain amount of control that they will, you'll get taught to hold on to the leg and hook one of the legs and keep them from spinning the other way, which would generally be a counter to a Darce choke. Granted, I'm pretty sure that if I remember right, they were pretty close to the cage. So the cage probably didn't help all that much being that close. But I was just surprised at the amount of force that Luque was able to apply just with his arms.
Yeah.
That's super impressive right, because, to be honest, visually it didn't look that tight. It looked like something he had, right? It didn't look like he was going anywhere. But we've seen guys kind of get put into positions where their heads almost look like they're about to pop off. Didn't really look like that. But Chiesa must have not have been able to breathe at some point for him to tap the way that he did, because he needed out.
Oh yeah. Omar, let me stay with you. Welterweight is still a somewhat stacked division, not quite as stacked as my bantamweight division, but still. With this great win, Vicente Luque, with this great win over the big name in Michael Chiesa, where do you see him going from here? We have Masvidal, Thompson, Edwards, Burns. He's probably not going to fight Burns because they're boys, but where do you see Luque going from here?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're going to fight Burns, you got to fight Burns for a title. I think that's kind of why he called out Usman. I know him and Usman are also boys to some degree. I don't know if they're hanging out every weekend, but they're definitely cool with each other, and they've trained with each other, or trained with each other currently, I believe. But it's for the title, right? I mean, at this point, everybody on that roster, I feel like, is basically training out of the same place, and they're all going to end up fighting each other for a run at that gold.
Right.
I would love to say Leon Edwards. I don't know if Leon Edwards is down to fight anybody at this point until he gets a title shot. That dude keeps getting thrown people like if he's like a garbage disposal, like when no one knows what to do with somebody, just give him Leon Edwards and let's see what happens.
Now, Vicente Luque, he does seem like he's sort of ascending into the spotlight somewhat recently, but he has 100%. Been on the UFC roster since 2015. He has a loss against Leon Edwards. He has a loss against Stephen Thompson. I think both of those would make great sense at this point to be rematches, but there are also other names. Mark, who do you see Luque matching up with after this big win?
So you touched on it. It's unfortunate that they're boys, because Burns would make a lot of sense. It would really be the perfect fight to make right now. But the more I have watched these countdowns and embeddeds and so on, it really seems like they're super tight. So I think we are correct in saying that one's not happening. So from there, so you mentioned Leon. It seems to me like Leon is willing to accept Masvidal simply because of the history there. Yeah. And obviously we've been teased with that fight being made a million times, and who knows if it is or if it isn't. It seems like he's willing to do that. But if it's not that, it seems like he thinks he should just be waiting and getting the Usman Colby winner, which is fair. Like, he has earned that. So it doesn't feel to me like he's fighting anyone else other than Jorge if they book that one. So I kind of think he's out of this discussion as a potential opponent. So to me, if Edwards is going to wait, I think Jorge makes perfect sense. If you made Luque versus Jorge, that would be a great fight. Absolutely, dangerous fight. Either guy could finish either guy. They can both take the fight anywhere. Super marketable. It would raise Luque's star for sure. That's a great fight. And honestly, you guys might not love this. The fallback for me, if Jorge Leon is happening and you can't make the Jorge fight, is Nate Diaz.
I'm sure, why not?
I think he makes more sense than anyone else who's up there right now. He's not going to fight Stephen Thompson again. He just lost to him. He's not going to fight down after just beating Chiesa. There's not really anyone else there. I think Nate Diaz and Luque would be fucking violence.
It would be fun.
But you have to remember, to fight Nate Diaz at this point, you need to be gangster enough to fight Nate Diaz. You have to be worthy enough to fight Nate Diaz. He doesn't give a shit about your ranking.
These are professional MMA fighters.
Would not shock me. Sorry, Mike.
I'm sorry, who is not gangster enough? This is the top 10 welterweight MMA fighters of the UFC. Like, who's not gangster enough to fight anybody?
Khabib Kebab. He doesn't even take Khabib seriously.
Yeah, he means in the opinion of Nate. But it wouldn't shock me if Nate, Nate just fought Leon Edwards. Let's not forget. He took a fight with Leon Edwards. So it wouldn't shock me if he has been watching Luque and sees his resume and all these finishes. I mean, the dude finishes every win is a finish pretty much. It wouldn't shock me if he sees that and he's like, you know what? I'll scrap with this dude. Like it really wouldn't. Especially with Luque standing now where Nate knows he just had a shot to kind of suddenly be in the title picture and couldn't quite finish Edwards when he needed to. And Luque's kind of that guy where if he fought Luque and won, he'd be right back there again.
Why are you invoking the name of Nate Diaz? Why? I don't want him fighting a welterweight anymore.
Man.
What do you want him doing?
Lightweight.
Oh no, we're past that.
It's never gonna happen, dude. That dude is so big now. It's not gonna happen.
He's not big at all.
No, he's not going back to lightweight.
He's not going back to lightweight. It's not happening.
He was so much better at lightweight. Oh my God.
Oh, for sure. That's not up for debate. It's just that man's not cutting weight anymore.
He has 2 wins at welterweight over the former featherweight world champion and the former lightweight world champion, Anthony Pettis. And the first one I mentioned was Conor McGregor.
Yeah, but how many wins does he have if fights were infinity rounds? A shitload.
I was just gonna ask you guys. So, like, if we're gonna do this Vicente Luque fight, are we doing 10 rounds? Are we gonna do 10 rounds for this fight?
I would love it if it was 5. That would be dope.
It will be a 10-round fight. Nate Diaz would, during the fight between the bells, would saunter around the octagon until his opponent finally drops his guard and is like, what the hell is this guy doing? I guess like he's just being a clown. And then Nate will clip him and be like, I'm the man, you suck.
Tell me this, if you may engage me quick here.
Okay.
As a quick sidebar. Let's pretend Leon versus Jorge is booked, right? And obviously Usman and Colby is happening. I'm going to rattle off the next, say, 7-8 names that come into my mind. You tell me one who makes more sense for Luque than Nate Diaz. You being Mike, since you're the one that hated on this.
Okay.
Stephen Thompson, who just beat him.
To make sense for who? Luque.
More sense for Luque to fight than Nate Diaz. Chiesa, who he just beat. Neil Magny.
I'm looking.
Jeff Neal. Bilal Muhammad.
Okay, now you're exiting the top 10.
Damian Maia. Sean Brady.
No.
Kevin Lee.
No.
Like, who? I'm not looking at the UFC's top 10. I'm looking at my own rankings.
I get you.
So I don't know if I skipped a name that's ranked in theirs that I don't rank as highly.
I get you.
But was there any names in there that make more sense than Nate Diaz?
I don't know.
If you guys didn't notice, our rankings are first here.
Better.
Yeah.
Let me correct what you just said. Better.
Yes,
Better.
correct.
All righty. Well, with that being said, let's get back on track, boys, and put a little bow in Vicente Luque. Congratulations to Vicente Luque on his great win over Michael Chiesa. And we now turn to the last fight we're gonna mention from UFC 265 from this past weekend, that being Tecia Torres defeating Angela Overkill Hill via unanimous decision, earning a score of 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28 Omar, let me start with you. What did you make of this big win from the tiny tornado, Tecia Torres?
It was twofold. It was a little bittersweet. I was super happy to see the best Tecia Torres I think I've ever seen since watching her, and I've been watching Tecia Torres for quite a little bit now. Definitely the best performance I've ever seen. She really seems to have, I don't know if put it all together is really the term, because her game was still very much the same. There was just more of it. She had a lot more action, a lot more control over the pace. She was strong in the clinch, completely controlled Angela Hill, threw her around like a rag doll. There was never a point at any point during the fight that Angela Hill had control over her, whether it was in striking distance or in the clinch. In that same point, super sad to see Angela Hill get completely stunned for that fight. I believe she had talked earlier in the end of her last fight that she lost a split decision, that it might be time for her to, change up her game a little bit, kind of add some wrestling or add some takedowns to her game, to really start solidifying these decisions and stop leaving them so, coin flippy. I think we kind of saw the results of perhaps the beginning of that.
Yeah.
I wasn't super thrilled with it. It didn't really look like it improved her game. It looked like it kind of took away from her game. I actually think Angela Hill's looked better in her, her past performances. I think she looked better in her previous Tecia Torres performance than she did in this one. And that's not to say that, Tecia looked better in this past performance than she did in her first one, but there was a discrepancy in the way that Angela Hill looked. So in that regard, that was kind of sad to see, because like I said, I'm a big Angela Hill fan. I want to see her get to that elite level and kind of get that respect for the work that she's really put in over the years. But that wasn't the one to do it off of.
Yeah, me too. I've always been a huge Angela Hill fan. Even more so when I found out that she is an alum of Friday Night Fights, the promotion in New York City that gave me my first break in ring announcing. So that only made my fandom of Angela Hill grow tenfold. I just feel like Angela Hill, Friday Night Fights is a purely Muay Thai kickboxing promotion. So, Angela Hill always brings such crisp, awesome Muay Thai into the octagon. But I just feel like even at this weight class, she just doesn't seem to have enough power to make a real difference in the fight. She doesn't quite earn enough respect from her opponent. And she always gets into these sort of scraps that are always seemingly very close. And unfortunately, in the past 4 fights, she's been on the losing end 3 times in a row. Not 3 times in a row, but rather she lost against Claudia Gadelia, Michelle Watterson, both of which were very close split decisions. And heartbreaking for me. And now she lost I would say competitive unanimous decision loss against Tecia Torres. But Mark, let me get your reaction. Shifting gears from Angela Hill over to Tecia Torres, what was your reaction of her win on this night?
I thought that was possibly the best Tecia Torres that we have ever seen. She has always been really good. She's kind of someone who manages to fly under the radar because she has had her share of losses in the UFC, but they are all to top 5 fighters. She has yet to drop to anyone who is not elite. The lowest name that has beaten her is Marina Rodriguez, who is top 5 right now. She's a beast. She has made a career in the UFC thus far of turning back the Angela Hills of the world, and she did it again. I was torn on this fight going into it on Saturday night. I kind of had decided that I thought Hill could do it, and this was one of those fights where 30 seconds into the fight, even though nothing so significant had happened yet, I was like, nope, I picked this one wrong. Because it was that evident that quick that Hill just did not have the physical attributes to hang with Tecia. She was faster. She was stronger. She was more powerful. She was quicker. there was nothing for Hill to fall back on,
Right.
as an advantage in that fight, and it was evident really quickly. And you kind of just understood how that fight was going to go. Tecia did whatever she wanted. Hill tried to change it up. She tried to close the distance, tried to grapple, tried to do anything she could to change the dynamic. But there was nothing that she could do. Tecia was simply the better athlete and the better fighter. And Hill unfortunately takes another loss. I'm not entirely sure when she gets another big name like this, or if, but Tecia, of course, gets a big win, and it wouldn't shock me if she gets a big fight here again now and see what she does with it.
Now, I feel like women's strawweight is sort of underratedly a competitive division. I mean, with fighters as talented as Angela Hill being, not even being able to break through to the top 10. I'm looking at the UFC rankings. You could let us know, Mark, in just a little bit, where you have her in yours. And actually, maybe this is a good point of segueing, because sometimes segueing is hard, but times like this, it's a little easier. So let us now turn away from UFC 265. And let's go to our new segment, or rather our next segment, the Priaulx Rankings. So Mark, let us know in your personal rankings, who rises and who falls on the heels of UFC 265.
So to answer your question, I still have Angela Hill at 13 in my own rankings. She's hanging on in that spot. I was actually going to say that I kind of love the idea of letting her be the ranked fighter to test Amanda Lemos, because that would be a really dangerous fight. But Angela Hill, and a fight that a lot of people don't want right now, but Angela Hill is that girl who says yes to every fight. And not only that, it would be a chance for her to catapult herself right back into the mix at a time where it kind of feels like she's on her way out of it. So I love that fight. I'm kind of hoping that is the fight that happens. But moving past Angela Hill, in terms of the Priaulx rankings, there were only two notable ones this week. I know that might seem odd for people who are not entirely familiar. Like what about Ciryl Gane? He had this great performance. Jose Aldo, Vicente Luque. But just to clarify, like Ciryl Gane and Derrick Lewis I had Lewis at 2, Gane at 3 coming into this. So they've now flip-flopped. And similar, I already had Jose Aldo at 4. He looked amazing. He's not passing Dillashaw and so on. So same deal throughout. So what I'm giving you guys is the fighters who had significant moves in terms of their numbers. And on that point, my first is Manel Kape, who I have moved from the number 27 flyweight to the number 22 flyweight. He's still 1-2 in the UFC, so I haven't moved him up tremendously. But this is a guy we talked about last week, if you listened last week, who has looked really good in his 2 losses, oddly enough, who I really hoped would put out a performance to kind of let people see how good he is. And he did exactly that, flying knee knockout of Ode Osborne. So, Manel Kape is here now. I wouldn't shock me, even though he's 1-2, if he gets like a top 10 opponent next, just because his name is kind of held in that regard worldwide. And coming off a knockout like that, I could see him kind of go right back up the ladder and get another shot like that. And the other one, other mover, is Jessica Penne. I had her going in as the number 23 women's strawweight. I now have her all the way up at number 14 at women's strawweight, which is kind of hard to believe when you think back a couple of years ago where her career was at. It was a never-ending suspension, all the controversy there about her saying that it was tainted supplements and all that. She hadn't even been doing so great prior to that suspension. It kind of felt like we might have seen the end of Jessica Penne. And she is now back. She's won 2 in a row. She just beat Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who obviously is on a large slide in her own career, having her own issues. But, that's a girl who has a win over Rose Namajunas in the past. It's not slide or not. It's a solid name that she just armbarred in, 4 minutes? So Jessica Penne, I have back. I don't think she is ranked by the UFC. I haven't looked, but I have her back at number 14 in my own rankings. And was really impressed and happy for her after all the time that she had to sit on the sidelines.
All right.
Omar, I know you had to be upset about your girl, Karolina.
I mean, let's be real. I didn't think she was going to win that fight. I mean, Carolina doesn't even fight the way that she used to fight when I liked her.
No, not at all. Yeah.
There's something's different about her, and I think it seems like heartbreakingly so that she's finally kind of come around to that realization. And I was talking to my wife about it, and the thing that messes me up about those situations is you have somebody who's basically dedicated most of their life to this craft, this art, and they put everything on the line. They put basically almost most of their lives on hold, birthdays that they've missed and all other kinds of things that we all kind of take for granted every year, and holidays and get-togethers and all kinds of stuff. And, they sacrifice most of that stuff for a chance at a successful career. And, to watch her skid and the way that she's been losing and the damage that she's been taking and the one-sided damage she's been taking, really. And to see her kind of have this like breakdown that this is probably not what she should be doing anymore was super, super hard to watch. So I hope she figures it out. I don't foresee her being in the UFC for much longer. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw her cut relatively soon. But if she decides to keep fighting, I will still be watching her. I hope that she figures it out, because kind of want good things for her too. She seems cool. Nice thing on Jessica Penne was she offered to work with Carolina. She told her to come out and train with her after the fight was over. And I'm sure Carolina didn't want to hear that shit in the moment, but I'm sure once everything's all said and done, she's got some time to chill out and kind of do some assessment. I would hope she maybe takes her up on the offer and sees if different pastures make her feel differently, because she seems like a good person. So I hope it works out.
Yeah. Well, with that,
Sure.
Let's turn ahead to our previews. But first, if you are enjoying a new MMA show, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button on YouTube. That will really help us out. And of course, subscribe. And if you're listening to this on our audio only podcast version, go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. That being said, boys, let us turn ahead to this Friday. Let us preview Bellator 264, Mousasi versus Salter. So, Mark, let me start with you. Mousasi coming off back-to-back wins over Lyoto Machida, Douglas Lima. Lima, the more recent of the two victories, earned Mousasi the vacant Bellator middleweight world championship. So, what do you make of this matchup and Mousasi defending his strap?
I think this is a really good fight. John Salter is not a big or sexy name, but he has absolutely earned this shot. He's won 8 of 9 in Bellator and has 7 finishes in those 8 wins. His only loss is to the now retired Rafael Lovato Jr., who is also the last man to beat Gegard Mousasi. So he has been nearly spotless in Bellator. He really has earned this shot. Again, he's not a name that the masses may know, but the guy is absolutely legit, and he has a game that can threaten Gegard. On that note, Gegard Mousasi is my guy. I love this man. He is as fantastic as he has always been. There's a couple of people who listen to this show, friends of mine, who will tell you how often I try to hammer home to them how good Gegard Mousasi is and how good his career has been. The guy has been fighting professionally since 2003 and has been fighting top names since 2006. Pride, Strikeforce, UFC, Bellator, so on. The guy has done it all. He is fantastic. His resume is unreal. Has been great now in Bellator. With that said, I think this is a tougher matchup than the ones he has had recently, like Rory and Lima. Obviously, those are much bigger names. But going into those fights, I was picking Mousasi without really thinking twice about it. Here, I am picking Mousasi as well. But the style of Salter is something that I think can trouble Mousasi. Salter will grind, and Mousasi, as we know, is such a calm fighter. And there are times when guys are really grinding him and he's not getting room to work and he has to fight to get back up off the ground, where he kind of seems to tune out a little bit and get a little bit disinterested. Generally, that will only happen for like a round, and then he'll come out the next round and you'll be like, all right, he adjusted, like he's fine. But he has these weird times. So anytime he fights a grinder like that, I always have a little bit of concern about the game plan getting away from him and him getting thrown off what he wants to do. And Salter is certainly a dangerous grappler. But with that said, so's Gegard. He's dangerous everywhere. And Salter's a live dog here. If you're into that, the odds I actually have here, Gegard's minus 350 last I looked, and Salter's plus 275. So you're getting value on Salter if you would like it. But it's not for me. I think Gegard is still right now the third or fourth best middleweight on the planet. I would put Izzy over him. I would put Whitaker over him. After that, maybe Costa. I could argue it. I think the guy is still that good. And on that note, I think he's got too many tools and is too dangerous in too many different scenarios that I think he will hurt Salter at times. And if he doesn't finish him, I think we'll end up winning a unanimous decision.
Man, Mousasi versus Izzy is just a matchup that I feel so robbed of.
I would love that fight so much.
Same with Whitaker, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wish he never left the UFC, to be honest.
Omar, let me go to you. Let me get your take on Mousasi defending his belt.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mousasi. I love the way Mousasi fights. He's one of those guys that no matter wherever he's being placed, he's never really at a massive disadvantage. Mark's right, though, in the sense that he gets, especially when he's on the ground, and if he is getting smothered, he has this tendency to sort of be comfortable being on the bottom to the point where he'll lose a round. And, we can kind of get into some weird territories there. But Gegard Mousasi is still very elite anywhere. I think the reason that people do take him down and smother him is because they don't really have a lot of answers for him anywhere else. Yep. No one's really going to just stand and bang with Gegard Mousasi continuously like that without taking damage to the point where they need to switch something up. So Gegard Mousasi, I think, is a very, very dangerous fighter anywhere. And I think the real issue with Gegard is you never know if you've heard him or not. That man has probably one of the best poker faces in all of MMA I've ever seen. We've seen him in rough fights, and I still don't ever think I've seen him with pain in his face. Literally never. I've seen
even the
tired.
other way. You don't even know if he's happy.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be going with Gegard. Salter seems like a very grindy, tough wrestler, which I think you would expect from most wrestlers. I think that Gegard's on a different level.
All right. So in the co-main event, we have Andrey Koreshkov versus Mark, help me out with this name, Sabah Homasi.
Correct. Sabah Homasi. That's
right. Koreshkov coming off a submission win, and Homasi coming off a TKO loss against Paul Daly. So Mark, let me start with you. What's your assessment of this matchup?
A TKO loss against Paul Daly where he almost did it. He was putting it on Paul Daly, and he got overzealous and got himself knocked out. But this is a good one. Koreshkov obviously was the one-time welterweight king of Bellator. He has still only lost to the elite at this point. He has fought a little more infrequently, but the guy's still nearly every bit as good as he was. And Sabah Homasi did well to get a streak going in Bellator. He had won 3 in a row. He was looking good. Obviously earned himself the Paul Daly fight. And as I said, had Daly on the ropes and just got a little overzealous and got finished. But skill for skill, I don't think these guys are on the same level. I think that Koreshkov is too good. If he is not outclassing Homasi on the feet, which I even think that he can, then I think he'll just wrestle. So I think either way, this will end up going in his favor.
Omar, what are your thoughts of Koreshkov Homasi?
Very similar. I think that Homasi is kind of like a brawler. I mean, that guy is. If you try to get into a firefight with him, you're probably going to end up losing. I don't necessarily see Koreshkov being dumb enough to do that. He's not the type of fighter that's just going to stand in front of you, plant his feet, and just get crazy with you. So I definitely think that it's going to kind of be very similar, more than likely, to Ciryl Gane and Derrick Lewis in that sense, where Homasi is going to be looking for the knockout. He's going to be looking to put hands on him. He'll put himself in danger to get those knockouts, to get those punches in. But I just see Koreshkov being, the person with the championship experience, with, having been through the fire with a lot of these guys with the elite experience. I don't see him getting caught by anything that low level, I guess.
Any other big fights from this card that you guys want to touch on before we move on to PFL 7?
Yeah, I will touch on one, certainly, which is Magomedov versus Raufeon Stots.
Gesundheit.
This is a big deal fight that is probably under a lot of people's radars who may not know these guys quite yet. But this is a big fight. This is two of the best up-and-coming fighters. I mean, I say up-and-coming. These guys, especially Magomedov, have been in big fights already, which I'll get to. But in terms of making their way up in Bellator, two of the best guys they have working their way up the ranks right now, and they're taking them and matching them against each other, which is not something that Bellator is prone to do very often. Mm-hmm. You'll see that in the UFC. You won't really see that in Bellator so much. So I'm a little surprised that they're doing that here. But both these guys are fantastic. Magomedov, I believe, I don't have it here, is 18-1, and his one loss is to Petr Yan, and he also has a win over Petr Yan. So the dude is extremely legit. He's 2-0 in Bellator. He's a monster, and the man he's matched with, Raufeon Stots, is 16-1, and he's 4-0 in Bellator, and his only loss in his career is to Merab back in Ring of Combat. So these guys are both no joke. They both have huge resumes. And this is a fight where one of these guys could jump out of this fight. And maybe Bellator has already said this. If they have, I haven't seen it. But could jump out of this fight right into title contention. Like Sergio Pettis is watching this fight really closely. It's a huge fight. Stots has been really dominant thus far, and he is super well-rounded. So he has kind of been able to exploit the weaker area of anyone he fights and play the fight out wherever he chooses, which has allowed him to look fantastic. When I break this one down, I end up feeling like he's just kind of run up against a guy in Magomedov who is the same type of well-rounded fighter as him, but better everywhere. I think that Magomedov is a more dangerous kickboxer, and they have very different styles of wrestling. Magomedov is more like that Dagestani style of wrestling, but I think he's a stronger wrestler as well. So I think this is going to be a tough night for Stots. It seems like like Vegas feels the same way, which kind of surprised me. I thought this would be tight, and it's not tight at all. Magomedov is -400, and Stots is +300. So they think Magomedov is that good, and maybe he is. And I actually know a guy who has trained with Magomedov who has been telling me how good he is for a while. So this might be it. This might be the coming out party. We will see. I don't want to act like it's definitely going to be, because Stots is very good. But I'll pick Magomedov here for sure.
Omar, you got a pick for us before we move on to PFL?
I'm going to go with Stots on this one.
Okay.
just because I want to have a democratic process here.
Well, also this Friday, but first, actually, if you guys aren't already, go ahead and follow us on social media at @&new_MMA show in pretty much all the places: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, probably a few others that I don't even know about. So also this Friday is PFL 7, the 2021 PFL playoffs. With this event, we get both the welterweight semifinals as well as the lightweight semifinals. So the most notable matchup, of course, is Rory MacDonald, the Red King, the Gorilla, taking on Ray Cooper III. Rory is coming off a controversial loss to the veteran Gleison Tibau, robbery. And one thing of note, Rory MacDonald and Ray Cooper III have identical professional records, both at 22-7-1.
Wow.
Mark, let me start with you again. What are your thoughts on Rory MacDonald in this big spot with PFL?
My first question on this is, did neither of these companies think like, let's put our event on Saturday? I don't understand why Saturday is open and you both go on Friday night.
Is something going on Saturday that we don't know about?
I was trying to look. There's nothing that I see. I don't think there's any big boxing.
I imagine these decisions are made a long time ago.
I guess maybe that's it. But is it so hard to move? I don't know. I mean, I think PFL always does Fridays. But Bellator certainly does Saturdays. They just did a Saturday with McKee.
You would think without UFC competition too, Saturday would be an easy pop.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe nothing they could do about it. But in terms of the fight, definitely cool fight. Looking forward to it. In terms of how I see it, as good as Ray Cooper has been for PFL, putting on great fights, finishing guys and so on, I would be surprised if he could beat Rory MacDonald. Obviously, as I said, he's looked really good. He beat Jake Shields a couple times, which is a great name to have on his resume. Mm-hmm. But Jake Shields is not Rory MacDonald. I still see Rory as a level above. With that said, it's a bit difficult to gauge exactly where Rory is right now, because since he beat Douglas Lima in 2018, he is 2-3-1 in his last 6 fights. Since beating Lima, he lost to Gegard. Mm-hmm. He drew with John Fitch. He beat Neiman Gracie, which was a solid win. Lost to Lima in the rematch. Beat Curtis Millender, which, okay. And then the screw job against Tibau. So he did beat Tibau, but regardless, he didn't beat him enough for him to not get screwed. So he's had a little bit of a weird run here where it's possible that we don't have the same Rory anymore. He definitely fights a little defensive these days, which is interesting in this fight because Cooper is not going to allow that. He's absolutely going to put it on him. So we're going to see how Rory reacts to that. But all in all, I can't not take Rory. He just has so many more tools. He has such a better ability to dictate the range and decide where this fight's going to take place. So I got to end up with Rory in the end. And honestly, as a fan, I hope that Rory is still good enough to turn back Ray Cooper, because the guy was so good at a certain point in time.
You hear a lot about in other sports like the NBA or maybe baseball or the NFL of something like greatest players to never win a title. And in MMA, Rory MacDonald's up there in terms of that for me. To think of a guy like him who is so good and who got pretty close.
Well, he won the Bellator title. Are you?
No, I'm really referring to the UFC then.
Right. Okay. Fair.
I know what you mean though. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. In the UFC, he got so close.
Yeah.
And he also put it on a guy who held the belt in Woodley before Woodley had the belt. But yeah, he's up there for me. If we made a list of like greatest fighters to never win UFC gold, Rory MacDonald would be way up there for me.
Yeah, there was a time where it kind of felt like it was a lock that MacDonald was going to be a future UFC champion.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, the the fight that concerned me was that last Robbie Lawler fight that he had.
Yeah.
Because that, the amount of damage both of them took, there's no way you're going to convince me that either one of them walked out the same. Like they both lost something like in themselves after that fight. Something broke in both of them after that fight. Because first of all, Rory was never the same after that fight. Whether he was scared to have his nose shattered again or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was never the same fighter after that fight. That fight screwed them both up.
Yeah.
One of the greatest fights ever.
I mean, it really was, though.
And some awesome pictures from that fight. The one where they're like yelling at each other. Oh,
yeah.
Dude, the stare down. The stare down. When the round ended and both of them just wouldn't walk away.
The Robbie Lawler scream with his lips split open.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like as a fan, I want Rory to still be good enough that he is going to get this done.
But those are miles you're not getting back.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, not to mention he was in a different mindset at the time. He's talked a lot about how he's gone through, religious changes and he went through a time where he didn't even really want to hurt people, but he's an MMA fighter. And so he was, he went through a lot of stuff. But before all that, he was kind of a crazy person. He was a killer inside of the cage. And, it just, there was something in that fight, whatever it was, that he just wasn't the same after that fight.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Magomedkerimov versus Sadibou. Sadibou.
For those of you keeping track, this is a different Magomed.
That's right. What is with these Russians, man?
I want to make it clear.
Yeah.
Do they have no creativity with naming their kids?
That Magomedov and Magomedkerimov are fighting on the same night.
What is it with the Americans? What is with your Michael? How many Michaels do you need to have in America?
I know, Michael Michelsons. But who's the guy who just defeated who Joseph Benavidez lost to in his last fight? Askarov?
Askarov, yep.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of these. That's a
good one.
But yeah, so you said it right. Second time, Sadibou Sai. He was actually the 5 seed here. The 1 seed at welterweight was actually always forget how to say his first name. Joao Zeffirino. You guys could correct me if you know, but he was the 1 seed here and got injured. So now Sai was able to jump in to this matchup. And Sai is definitely a talented kickboxer. I just think, unfortunately, he is going to be terribly outclassed here against Magomillions, which is what they call Magomedkerimov ever since he won the first tournament in a couple of years back in PFL.
I love that.
But yeah, the dude's a beast. He's won 12 in a row. He's looked unstoppable. It's not going to change here. He's a minus 600 favorite. He's going to be waiting in the finals for the winner of the MacDonald Cooper fight for sure.
Nice. Omar, any thoughts before we turn to the lightweight semis?
Dude, I'm trying to figure out if I can buy tickets to this fight.
Why is it near you?
I think it is, man.
I didn't even realize that.
Is this in? It says Hollywood, Florida, Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino.
Dude, go.
Where's Hollywood, Florida?
You will be our boots on the ground.
I'm in Florida. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, with that, if it's all right with you, Omar, Mark, I want to just leave this up to you. These lightweight semis, these 2 matchups, why don't you just take them through for us and for the listeners?
Do it.
Sure. So on one side, we have Clay Collard versus Raush Manfio, which should be a close competitive fight. To give you the odds on that one, Collard is minus 170 and Manfio is plus 150, so pretty tight. They both are coming off wins over Anthony Pettis, both unexpected wins, and kind of has made both of their names a little bit here. Clay Collard's on a hell of a run, man, for a guy who didn't look like much back in his UFC tenure and then kind of went over to boxing for a while, where to his credit, he did have some noteworthy wins. Came back into MMA to try to get the million in this tournament. And all of a sudden, Clay Collard's looking like a beast. I mean, he dropped Anthony Pettis 2 different times. He's on a great run. Manfio obviously looked good against Pettis as well in a fight where I think people were kind of a lot more surprised. Some people maybe gave Collard a chance to be competitive. Manfio didn't really have that kind of a resume going in. But now he's here as well. And obviously they're giving him at plus 150. People think he's got a real shot here. He's a guy who mixes it up more, which I think he will look to do against Collard because Collard is almost entirely a striker. I just think it's gonna be a tough night for Manfio. From what I could see against Pettis, he is more of a kind of just 1-2 guy. He throws a lot of single shots, and I don't think that's going to get it done. He's not a strong enough wrestler, in my opinion, to just be able to dictate the fight that way. So I think he's going to end up having a strike with Collard, and I think the volume is just going to be too much. Collard seems like he has really found himself. Like he has figured out how he needs to fight to accentuate his skills and his advantages. And I will roll with him here again in this one. But that should be a close fight. And then the other one, Luque Radzhabov and Alexander Martinez. I will not pretend that I know these guys well. Another close fight odds-wise, minus 160 for Radzhabov, plus 140 for Martinez. They actually just fought to a split decision 3.5 months ago, where Martinez won. A lot of people thought it should have gone the other way. That's the nature of PFL with these tournaments, the way the seedings work out. They just fought trying to get into the tournament. Now here they are again in the tournament. In that fight, Radzhabov spent a lot of time on top, and Martinez was very active off his back, which is kind of what led to the quirky scorecards. Again, I don't know these guys super well. If I'm forced to make a pick here just for the sake of it, I'll go with the underdog. I'll go with Martinez. He's the better striker. Obviously, as I said, he was really active off his back in the first fight. So he's the more well-rounded fighter of the two, where Radzhabov more so relies on the wrestling. So I'll just go out on the limb and say that the more well-rounded fighter is able to make the better adjustments because he'll have more options after fighting Radzhabov the first time. So I'll take the underdog in that one. But yeah, it should be a good night of fights. And the undercard of PFL is pretty strong too. So for a weekend with no UFC, we got some pretty solid cards, to be honest.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mark. And Omar, before we get out of here, any parting shots? Any words of wisdom or any fun facts?
We have just one quick fun fact. Chad Mendes is on his way out to BKFC.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so he finally got that taken care of. The interesting thing too is that he's still under contract with the UFC. He still has fights left with the UFC. So the UFC had to give him a green light.
Right? I saw that.
Yeah, they gave him a green light to actually do it, which was interesting because Chad Mendes was also in line to fight De La Hoya. And
wait, what?
You heard correct. Chad Mendes was on the short list to fight De La Hoya. In fact,
fight Oscar De La Hoya.
Yes, indeed.
The Golden Boy.
And it was
Mendes to Vitor Belfort. Vitor Belfort could eat Chad Mendes.
Well, so here's how this went. Everybody who's still, and this happened with GSP too, anybody who's under contract with the UFC who was talked about going to fight Oscar De La Hoya, Dana White told them all no. They weren't getting permission to go out of their contract to do it.
Right.
Doesn't Dana hate Oscar De La Hoya?
And that's why he was doing it. But the reality is you kind of just screwed guys though off of a paycheck, right? I mean, it's kind of a petty thing to do. Like if Chad Mendes wants to go out there and, make millions of dollars fighting Oscar De La Hoya, let Chad Mendes go and make millions of dollars fighting Oscar De La Hoya. You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't really be up to Dana White to keep, especially GSP. GSP's done. Let that fucking man go do what he wants to do.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
He's done so much for the sport.
But the whole thing with Dana White and Oscar De La Hoya and, De La Hoya giving him, all this shit for Conor versus Mayweather, and that beef starting with De La Hoya basically telling the world not to buy that pay-per-view and Dana White taking that personally. It's just turned into this whole nonsense. So Vitor, who's not under contract with the UFC anymore, ended up landing that spot.
Wow. That is quite the end of episode newsbeat from Omar Artola.
There's your gossip for the week,
God.
boys.
Jesus.
as my last point, I just would love to add that. We had a lot of ground to cover tonight. We couldn't quite hit everything. We wanted to make sure we gave you guys a Bellator preview and a PFL preview, just because I'm not sure how many places are doing that, giving you previews beyond the UFC. So we wanted to make sure we covered that ground for you guys if you're going to be watching that on Friday night. But because of that, we had to skip over a couple things, and I just want to say that Rafael Fiziev and Bobby Green was an absolute banger.
100%.
And shout out to both of those guys. Bobby Green is such a freaking G. Fiziev is a stud. If you did not catch that fight, which was the final prelim over the weekend, and you have ESPN Plus, you should go back and sit down and watch that one because it was freaking awesome.
Yep,
absolutely.
One last thing, shout out to Victoria Leonardo. That woman lost that fight because of a broken arm. She was down to keep going. She looked that dude right. This dude looked the doctor right in his face. He goes, "I'm fine. Let's go." He's like, this is broken. She's like, "All right, we're good to go. Let's go." Just shout out to her. She's a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to the XFC, new promotion that I am announcing with. Just had my first event with them this past weekend, XFC 45 and XFC Young Guns 3. It was an amazing event at the Deltaplex Arena in Grand Rapids. A lot of action-packed fights, and XFC is making some big moves. And I think sooner or later, we're probably going to be talking about and breaking down their fights as well.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
This guy was on the broadcast with UFC legend Pat Miletich.
That's right.
We are moving up in the world.
That's
boys.
right, baby.
We're headed to the big time.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, once again, if you are enjoying a new MMA show, go ahead and on YouTube, like this video and subscribe to our channel, of course. And if you're catching this in the podcast form, again, subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and join the conversation on social media at @new_MMA show in all the social places. That being said, boys, we're out of here.
Yes. Leave us some comments. Let's get into some chats.
Peace.
Love you guys. Thanks for the support. Peace.